Hello, guys. How are you today? I am back with another witch story. I still have my little friend here. She's going to keep me company while I tell this story. I'm going to sit her right here on my lap. Now, if you have not seen the first witch story that I told, I will leave a link in the description box below. Please watch that video. I think you're going to enjoy it. Now, in my lifetime, I've come across 3 witches, real witches. Like I said, these witches that I'm talking about is not these modern day witches that are regular human beings that are practicing a religion called Wicca. These witches that I'm talking about are witches from the Bible. God created them, gave them their own bloodline and their own magic. Those are the witches I'm talking about. Now, after the first incident with meeting a witch, my mom would ask my dad periodically, not harass him about it, but every once in a while she'd ask him, if he saw a cat or a strange cat or whatever on his way to work, on his way home, on his way to the store, and so forth. And he would say no. Well, one day, my mom and I was out. It's been such a long time ago, I don't remember where we were going. We could have been going to the store or whatever. And we was walking, taking our time walking and talking and everything. And my mom kept stopping and looking. And when she stopped, she would put her arm in front of me to tell me to stop. And it was like a hush thing, like it was a secret or something. Well, after the third time, I asked my mom, I said, what do you see? Real quiet like. And she points to the right, like a half a block from where we were standing. She said, you see that cat right there? And first, I didn't know where she was pointing. And then she told me exactly where she was pointing. And I looked and I said, yes, ma'am, I see the cat. I said, what's wrong? She said, that cat is a witch. And I asked her, I said, how do you know the cat is a witch? She said, don't move. Just watch. So we were both looking at the cat. The cat would walk so many feet and it would stop. And it would look around. And then it would start running up ahead again a little bit further. And then it would stop. And it would turn around and it would look, well, not his whole body, but his head, and it would look this way and that way, right and left. And then it would move up a little bit further. And the third time it stopped. Did the same thing. Looked to the right, looked to the left, and then slowly started walking in the direction where it was going. My mom looks at me and she said, you see that? I said, yeah. I still don't understand, how do you know that cat is a witch? And my mom says, do you see any people around? And I looked. I said, no, I don't see any people around. She said, is there any cars running up and down the street, rolling up and down the street? I said, no. Haven't seen a car come down this street in a few minutes. She said, listen. And I didn't know what she was trying to tell me to hear. And so I said, I don't know what you're trying to tell me. I don't hear anything. She said, that's right. She said, there are no people walking up and down the street. A car haven't rolled by in a couple of minutes. You can't even hear the birds. She said, there is no reason why that cat should walk a little bit, stop, and look around. Walk a little bit, stop, and look around. Or run a little bit, stop, and look around. That cat has no reason to keep doing that. Normal cats do not do that. They'll be going in a certain direction. If they hear something, they'll stop and look and to see where the sound is coming from, and then they'll skedaddle and they'll keep going. She said this cat keeps stopping and looking, stopping and looking, stopping and looking. So I looked up ahead and I didn't see the cat anymore. I said, well, where do you think the cat? I said, I don't see the cat. Where do you think the cat went? My mom's telling me, said, probably went in one of those abandoned buildings, one of those empty houses. So that's the only way it could go. So we started walking. And a little bit further down the street, slowly looking, trying to see if we could spot the cat. And we finally saw it. We saw it again. It had made it to an empty house where, I guess, where it had meant to go. And it stopped again. And it turned around and looked. Now, we kept our distance. We kept a far distance. We wasn't talking loud or anything. But we could see it in the distance, and it stopped and it looked around again. And then it ran to the back of the house. So I asked my mom, I said, do you think the cat is going inside that empty house? My mom looks at me and said, that's where it lives. And she said, I bet if anybody was to go in that house right now, they would find bags and bags of salt, table salt. So I asked my moms, I said, well, table salt, why would you find bags and bags of table salt? She said, because. And I asked her, I said, what, do they eat it? And she said, no, the table salt is not for them to eat. She says, that's what they use to peel off their skin. She said, remember I was telling you before that they have to peel off their skin in order for them to turn into a cat? And I said, yes, ma'am, I remember you telling me that. She said, well, that's what it is. She says, they say a spell or do a spell, and they rub the salt all over their body, and they start peeling their skin off from their nose, like upward. And then once they peel all their skin off, they're able to turn into any animal they want to turn into, she said, but they mostly turn into cats because that's the easiest way for them to get into a person's home. So I asked my mom, I said, we going in there and look? And my mom, she looks at me like I was dead, downright off my rocker. It's like, no, we're not going in there. We're not going near there. She said, in fact, the cat went into that house on the right. She said, we're going to the left. And we're not going to even come down the street anymore. Next time when we're getting ready to go to the store, she said, we're going to take another street, a different street. So that was the second time I saw a witch. And we didn't see the cat anymore in any direction that we went to when we were going to the store and everything. In fact, we ended up moving a short time after that. It wasn't because of the witches and stuff, or the witch. uh, we had to end up moving from where we stayed at, from where we lived on Cottage Grove. And you will eventually, if you keep tuning into these stories, you will eventually know why we had to move out. So now that's the end of the second encounter. Now here comes the third encounter. We had moved to a regular 2-flat apartment building. There was people living on the first floor. There was only 2 floors. It was like a family home. It had a porch. The porch was from the right of the house, in the front, from right. It covered the whole front of the house. And then the stairs was on, if you were going into the house, the stairs was on the right hand side, and you would go up the stairs, and then there was a doorway, and you go inside the door, and to the left was the door to the first floor apartment, and then there was a space, and then there was the stairs that went upstairs, and that was to where our apartment was. Now, there were some strange things that was happening there too. I will eventually get to what was going on at that place where we were living. But as for the witch, a short time after we moved in, I had a hard time sleeping. Now, it didn't happen to me all the time, but sometimes I would fall asleep. It's at nighttime. You know, you go to bed at night, you go to sleep. And I would have these dreams, and these dreams always coordinated with me, giving me a reason. I couldn't breathe. I could not breathe. I would be fighting. I could feel my breath leaving away from me. And I would be fighting trying to wake up. I would be fighting trying to wake up. And I would eventually wake up. And that happened to me a couple of times. Well, actually, several times. The last time it happened to me, it scared me so bad. Like I said, the dreams that I were having was always coordinated with me not being able to breathe. Like one time I was dreaming, and the reason why I couldn't breathe is because I had fell into the water and I was drowning. And the last time, so it was something like that. And then the last time I had a dream, and I was in space. And as you know, in space, there's no oxygen, there's no air. So this was the reason why I couldn't breathe this time. And I could feel my breath getting shallow and shallow and like that. And I was fighting. And I finally woke up. That scared me so bad. I went into the room where my mom was sleeping. And I woke her up, and she asked me what was wrong. And I told her, I said, I don't know what's going on with me, but every time, well, not every time, I said, sometimes when I fall asleep, I said, in my dreams, I can't breathe. And I'm struggling and fighting to wake up, and I'm finally able to wake up. She said, well, the first thing my mom thought she was thinking, she said, well, are you sleeping with your mouth open or your mouth closed? Because maybe sometimes your nose get clogged up at night. And, you know, if you fall asleep with your mouth closed, depending on what position you fall asleep, you know, you may not be, if your nose is stopped up, you may not be able to open your mouth to breathe unless you change positions in the bed. So I told her, I said, I do sleep with my mouth open. I do sleep with my mouth open. So she told me, she said, well, go back in and lay down and lay on your back and raise your head a little bit on the pillow and open your mouth and breathe through your mouth. Don't breathe through your nose. Breathe through your mouth. And so I was explaining to my mom, I said, but my nose is not stopped up. My nose is clear. This happened. My nose is clear. And so my mom said, well, you want to stay in here with me and watch some TV? She said, we'll watch it. We'll watch some TV. And then later you can go back and lay down. So I said, okay. And that's what I did. Well, the next day, my mom, she comes in the room and she says, I want to ask you something. And I say, yes, ma'am. She said, how often does this happen? Does this happen a lot? And I said, no, it's not a lot. It's not every night. She said, but it's some nights it happens. And it's like I'm fighting, struggling to wake up because I know that I'm sleeping. And then sometimes I don't know that I'm sleeping, but whatever the dream is about, I'm fighting to get out of the dream. And my breath is almost gone. And so my mom looks at me and she says, I know what's going on. And I asked her, I said, well, what's going on? She said, there's a witch in the area. Somewhere around here in the neighborhood, she said, somewhere nearby, there is a witch. Now, witches, they come after young children and babies by getting into the house as a cat. But what my mom was explaining, because my dad had not mentioned anything about cats or bringing a cat in the house or anything. And my mom mentioned to me, she said, if you are sensitive to witches, she said they can still bother you if they are nearby. And she said, remember the first time? And I said, yes, ma'am. She said, remember the second time when we saw the cat in the street and I told you that was a witch? And I said, yeah, but that cat wouldn't travel this far. She said, no, they don't travel like that. She said, when they move, but they don't follow you like that. She said, there is a witch in the area. And she said, I'll prove it to you. So when my dad got home, she told him everything that was going on. And she told him, she said, I want you to go out sometime or another in the next couple of days or so. I want you to go out and I want you to find me an iron horseshoe. She says, it doesn't have to be a brand new horseshoe. She said it could be a rusty horseshoe. And I need a nail. An iron nail, a rusty nail, something that will go through the horseshoe. And there was a lot of, it seemed like no matter where we lived at, there was always some type of junkyard in the area. Sometimes they would be 5 or 6 blocks away. Sometimes they would be 7 or 8 blocks away, but there was always a junkyard in the area. And so my dad went and he found a horseshoe and a nail, and he brought it home. And my mom, she stood up on a chair and she hung the horseshoe upside down over the door. And she said, now, She said, if there is a witch in the area, she said, it sounds like there's a witch in the area. She said, if your nose isn't clogged up, you're not having sinuses, or you don't have a cold or whatever, and you just stop breathing, can't breathe for some reason, she said, if there is a witch in the area, she said, this is going to let me know. And so for the next 3 days, the first day she hit the nail once. The second day, she hit the nail once. The third day, she hit the nail once. And a short time after that, we heard a knock on the door. My mom answered. She said, who is it? And the lady said what her name was. And she said, I need to talk to you. So my mom opened the door. All 3 of us kids was home. My dad, I think he had went down the street to a store. He wasn't there this time. And so my mom, she opened the door. And the lady looks at my mom. She said, will you please take that down from over your door? And my mom looks at her and she starts smiling. And my mom tells her, she said, you know about what I have over my door? And the lady says, yes, I do. And I'm asking you to please take it down. She says, I will get out of the area and I won't come back. She said, just please, please, please take it down. And so my mom looks at her and she nods her head. She said, okay. And she closed the door. And we heard, regular footsteps. The lady didn't turn into a cat outside the door. She walked down the stairs and she went outside. And after that, I didn't have any more problems sleeping. So that was my 3rd encounter with a witch. And this lady, she was African American that knocked on the door. She was African American. So, they could be any race. It really doesn't matter. They are what they are. They are who they are. Now, if you want to know how the horseshoe is set up over the door, please look at the first video of the witch story. I have a pop-up showing exactly how you're supposed to set it up. This type of situation, setting up the horseshoe like this, what it does to a witch is it bounds the witch up. It bounds them up where they can't use the bathroom, do a number 2. And as you know, if you go too long without doing a number 2, it will eventually take your life. So that's what it does. It stops them from going to the bathroom. And that's the reason why if they find out who has the horseshoe over the door, they'll come knocking, find some way to get in contact with you. Now, obviously, this witch was targeting me. Otherwise, how would she know where to come and who had the horseshoe over the door? Well, anyway, guys, yeah, that's a question to ask. So yes, she was targeting me, and I was not a baby. I wasn't a toddler or 8 years old. I think I was 10 or something at the time. So yeah, that's what happened. All right, guys, I'm going to end the story here. And I hope you enjoyed it. Very short story. But I have a third one. And this one doesn't involve me. It involves my twin brother. And you need to look out for that one. Because that one is going to be a doozy. Guaranteed. All right, guys. As I always say at the end of every video, let's work together and live better. And always, always, thank you for watching. Say goodbye to my little friend here. She'll be back for the third story. And guys, please, don't be afraid to get into the comments and say something. I know that some of you guys out there that will watch this video, I know that you've heard something, you've seen something, you've heard somebody else say something. Please, please, go into the comments section and say something. I would really appreciate it, and the viewers would really appreciate it. Anybody that like stories like this, this happened in real life. This is not a made-up story. This happened in real life. And anybody that watches the channel and watches specifically for these type of stories, they will really enjoy it. Please, guys, come into the comment section and leave a comment. Any type of comment. Just leave one. All right, guys. Bye for now.